Hi Angela,
Hi, Frank.
good afternoon and welcome to today's session. You've highlighted that you wanted to do some work on managing meetings and how to run an effective meeting. So you'd be happy to know that I've done some research and I've got some really good content and detail here to help you in terms of structuring the meeting. We're going to run through in a moment how to prepare for the meeting, some facets of conducting it, and also some follow-up techniques as well. But before I do, I need to just explain to you for WHS purposes, in the event of evacuation, there's a few exits. Exit down the end of that corridor, there's a door and one down this end, and in case of an emergency evacuation, there's some large windows here that you could pop out of. Also, in terms of the bathroom, first door on your right as you head up that corridor there. Is that okay? All right. So today, look, let's talk a little bit about meetings. First of all, I just wanted to explain to you my impression of meetings in my experience. There's nothing worse for me than attending a meeting that doesn't have a clear direction, a clear objective. Doesn't have participation, is boring in terms of content. The facilitator doesn't have any interaction. Have you attended any meetings like that in your time?
Many.
Many? And how do you react to that? How does it make you feel?
Scared to fall asleep.
Fall asleep yet? do you find that you learn anything from those meetings?
Normally not.
Okay, so I applaud you for wanting to learn this competency, because you should be having a meeting just for the sake of having a meeting. If you do have one, you need to make sure that your participants are getting something out of that meeting. It'll encourage their motivation to attending meetings and obviously their participation. And if they're learning, it's going to motivate them to perform well in the workplace. All right? So that's important. So look, have you had much experience yourself in running meetings in the past?
Not really.
No?
My last attempt was a bit of a failure. I got very nervous.
Okay. All right. Look, it's important to maybe highlight straight up front that it's absolutely normal to be nervous to run a meeting. I've run hundreds in my time, and I still get butterflies before every meeting that I run. I think that really comes down to, you have some passion around what you're about to deliver. You want to make sure that people get something out of it and learn, and you don't want to bomb out and provide a meeting like the one I suggested at the start of the session. So it's absolutely normal to do that. I think a way to get away from those nerves for me is about doing exactly what we're going to do today. So it's preparing a thorough agenda, highlighting how you're going to run the meeting, conduct the meeting, and then some follow-up techniques. And you'll find that just by following some pretty basic and simple formulas, you'll be able to run an effective meeting, which would then help you in terms of your confidence. All right? How's that sound?
Good.
All right. So look, what I've taken the liberty of doing before you came in was writing out some of the points so I wouldn't be standing up and writing as we spoke. So I just wanted to refer you, first of all, to the parts at the top there which talk about preparation for a meeting. So the first item there, can you see that?
Yeah, agenda.
Agenda, okay. So what's your interpretation of agenda? What does that mean to you?
Discussing the points that are going to be raised during the meeting.
Okay, yep. Who should the agenda go to?
All the participants.
Yep. And how soon before the meeting should it go to the participants, do you think?
Ideally, prior to, so that anyone who, usually where we work, we get them via email.
Yep.
And then the minutes after the meeting are sent out as well. And if anyone's got points to raise, they come prepared.
Okay. Do you think the agenda items are viewed by the participants before the meeting?
I think so.
Yeah, good. Because often people don't, and you get found out if you haven't looked at it. You should give yourself some time frame in terms of setting the agenda out, especially if the participants are required to prepare anything. So if you've asked them to think about a couple of things to bring to the meeting in terms of their input, if you've asked them to do some research, you've asked them to dig out some documentation, Don't send the agenda out an hour before the meeting starts. Give them ample time, a day or two, or you might need more time. So just be wary of that. And the agenda also includes, from your point of view, a bit of an introduction. What's your intro going to look like and sound like? And also the body of the meeting. So highlight the points in terms of content, what you're going to discuss, and then a summary as well. So, all right. But it's really important to send it out clearly well before. Participants, so you've got to make sure you send it to the appropriate participants. So highlight who is your audience, and make sure you don't make the mistake of sending it to the wrong people. So an invite is the best way to send that, because then you'll get a tick to say they've read it and it's come back. It also is a foolproof method of making sure you send it to the right people. If you send it to the wrong person and they accept it, it will come back to you, and then you can pick that up as well. Something else picked up. Documentation I've put in there as well. So that works two ways. As I mentioned, allowing them time to prepare if they have to prepare any documents. It also, in terms of what you need to prepare, make sure you have enough time to prepare your content. If you're bringing in a leaflet or a handout, or you've got to do some research yourself, give yourself the time to do that thoroughly. Make sure you've printed it off well in advance of the meeting. It looks good. There's no errors. Check it, and then you hand it out. All right? So you do that step well. A lot of that nervousness and a lot of the butterflies will disappear, because you've prepared and you're ready to go. The other thing I just wanted to mention in terms of preparation, Angela, is also the venue. Now, the thought of having it in a particular place or room is fine, of course, because you know what it should look like, but don't make the mistake of not visiting that venue before the meeting, because often someone else may have used it or may have booked it out that you don't know of. Importantly, they may have left things in there that you may not be aware of that you need to clean up. There could be, equipment, there could be chairs. So make sure that you, in advance, go in and check the venue and make sure it's suitable as you originally thought when you set it out. How's that sound?
Good.
All right. Any questions on that?
No, that's all good.
All right. So if we go into the next phase, and it's really how to conduct the meeting. There's a couple of steps there that I just wanted to revisit with you. So the first one I've mentioned there, Angela?
Time efficiency.
All right, so what do you think I mean by that?
I suppose staying on track and not going over time.
Very good, very good. How do you do that in that environment?
I suppose if people are in the meeting sidetracking, you just have to point out that you can discuss those points another time and just stick to what the meeting's.
Excellent. So you have run a meeting or two in the past?
I've been in a lot of meetings.
Yeah, good. So you're spot on there with time efficiency. Make sure you stay on track. Try to have a look in terms of your agenda. Make a highlight to say, okay, this should take 5 minutes, this should take 10, and that way, as you're measuring the time, you know that you're on track. You're always going to go a little bit under, a little bit over, depending on the conversation. But your technique there is great. Make sure you remind someone politely, we've only got a limited time. Your point's a great one. Can you jot this down, and we'll revisit it via email or in our next meeting, so you're not discouraging them to participate. So that's excellent. Talking about participation, I've got that down as the next point there, and I'll go into a little bit more detail in it afterwards. But participation is really about making sure you encourage everyone to contribute and not shooting them down. So that example you've given there is perfect. Someone puts a hand up and you're running out of time, acknowledge the individual, because if you don't, and you don't try to hear them out in some form, it's going to make them feel like they don't want to contribute anymore. So be wary of that. I've also put down minute taker. Very important for a number of reasons. Why do you think it's important to have a minute taker?
So that all the ideas and points raised are documented, and there's a summary of everything that's occurred during the meeting.
Yeah, very important. That's right. One, it's a great reference tool when you send the minutes out later. So if people might have remembered 3 or 4 things and not a fifth, that gives them a recall for that. It also specifies who does what in terms of any action items at the end, and captures everything. And then there's a record kept in a file. So there are some topics in the workplace like WH&S, compliance, where it is imperative minutes are taken, because there needs to be a reference guide to say certain things were spoken about. if you use it for the same importance in any meeting that you have, you're making sure that everything you've covered in that meeting does not go to waste. But there's a record of that. All right, how does that sound?
Good, very good.
Yeah, any questions on that?
No, that's okay. I think you've explained it very well.
Okay, good. All right, let's go into the follow-up stage and talk about a couple of things there. So in the follow-up is when the meeting finishes. If you've conducted the meeting and you've had someone else write the minutes, what do you think you should do after the meeting?
Possibly just check that the person has taken everything down.
And how do you do that?
Well, by checking her notes, or his or her notes, I should say.
Yeah, so always have the minute takers send you the notes before they're sent out to the participants, and that way you can check it back to your agenda items and make sure everything's been captured. All right. At the same time, if you see something or hear something that you want to make sure that was captured, don't leave it to chance that the minute taker may have missed it. Just write it down yourself, a quick word as a reminder, and you can double check that. So check the notes. Important to distribute the minutes. How soon after do you think?
We generally receive them the same afternoon. Someone types
Very
them
good.
up and emails them out to everybody and copies the
Yeah.
managers or the
Yeah.
CEO in or whatever.
And that's very important because if there's some action items there, people can get onto it straight away, and you're distributing those minutes the moment that they're fresh in people's mind, and now it will consolidate the fact that they've learnt something or whether they take something on. So that's very important. I've also put down there distribute documents, and what I mean there is in terms of documents that you have to prepare or send or remind people of when something is raised in the meeting. Very important that you access those documents and follow up on that action point immediately. So minutes go out, and here's the flyer that I was referring to in our discussion about X, Y, Z. And it shows the importance of what you spoke about in the meeting. You haven't forgotten it, so make sure if there's any attachments there, you need to put that out too. I've also put in there revisit outcomes to plan. What do you think I mean by that?
Basically, was that at the following meeting?
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, when you start the following meeting, you would commence by referring back to what was discussed at the previous.
That's exactly right. So if you've set some goals, the best way is first of all to use the previous minutes as an action list, and you make sure that people have actioned their item by ticking that off. You might even send that action item list as part of the agenda for the follow-up meeting. To say, okay, our meeting is on this day, we're following up from our meeting of last week. Here are the action items as a reminder. So you've sent them out originally, and you send them out a second time as a reminder, so there's no excuse for people not having done them, and they can bring them out, and then you tick them off item by item. So that's revisiting the outcomes. If there's things that haven't quite been achieved, in the follow-up meeting, you would then revisit those items, talk about some of the obstacles that were in the way of achieving that outcome, and then have a discussion around how to best overcome those moving forward. And you may need to revisit who's doing it. You may need to revisit adding another resource to getting that action item done. There's a number of things there, but that action item transitions forward to the next meeting until it's completed.
Yep.
And it might have a deadline in some cases, in which case you need to make that very clear. For instance, you might have a piece of equipment that you're following up on, and it has to be in the office by the 31st of December. That's a deadline because the 1st of January needs to be trained and needs to be used shortly after. So if there's a deadline, make sure that it's highlighted within that. All right?
Yep.
How does that sound?
Good.
Any questions so far?
No, that's all good, thanks.
Okay. All right, now I just want to talk a little bit about some of the behaviours throughout a meeting, and I think this is a really important way, a really important tools, a range of tools that helps you make sure that the communication and the delivery of the meeting takes maximum impact. All right, so first thing I want to talk about is reading. What do you think I mean by reading?
Well, you know that they're legible documents
Yeah.
or font,
Yeah.
so I suppose so that it's easy for everyone to read.
So there's a couple of things there. First of all, the documents you're handing out, if you're providing some, exactly right, make sure it's legible, preferably typed, not handwritten.
Oh yeah.
But that goes without saying in most organisations, but you'd be surprised. and also in terms of your own plan that you're reading off, why struggle and cram it all into small font and a difficult font to read? You know, I often make it large font, so I don't struggle. All I need to do is quickly refer to the point, and I know exactly where I'm at and what I'm up to. All right, so just make it a lot easier with that tool, and you'll reduce the amount of stumbling that you might have, and you and the participants.
Yeah, bullet points and so on.
Yeah, exactly right. You can even highlight keywords in the highlight pen, and that'll trigger your thought, and away you go. This is a really pet hate of mine.
Should I start writing?
Yes. No, well, you've done well. At least you've brought something with you, so well done. You run a meeting. Why do participants rely on their memory to remember everything when we've introduced many writing forms for them to capture the information? So I'm happy for people to bring their iPad and type straight into the iPad. Minimum a notepad and a pen. I think if they're not doing that, they're giving a lack of respect to the content of the meeting, and if they think they can remember everything that is discussed in a 15, 20, half an hour, 1 hour meeting, they're having themselves on. So I've been known to send people back and get writing material if they come in without their writing pad and pen. You can even throw it in as an agenda item to say, or in the agenda item, sorry, as a task that they must bring some writing utensils. Do I need to, explain that further?
No, we actually have all been given red leather GSA folders, which
Yes.
are compulsory whenever we go anywhere. We have to
Excellent.
have our folders and pens.
Brilliant. That's good. All right. Excellent. All right, oral. So I'm talking there about the communication style. You need.
Yeah, that's the problem. But I think everything else it seems easy to. But that, yeah, you've got the what do you call it? The confidence. I think a lot of people would love to sort of have that, but it just doesn't come easily.
Okay, so that we can work on that, and I've set a working plan here, a learning plan for you to adapt to, which we'll go through in a moment, and it's going to highlight steps to get you improved in that area. Look, in terms of oral, yeah, it's easy to say be clear, be concise with what you say, be direct at times. You need to use a range of techniques there, and what I tend to do is if you get some interaction going, so ask a question of the participants, and what it does, it puts the focus back on them, gives you time to regroup your thoughts. What do I have to say? Did I say it properly? Do I need to revisit it? As they give you an answer or a response, and then the attention's on them as well. In terms of being concise, utilise the meeting time. So if you've got an hour and you've got plenty of time to talk about something, you can go into a lot of detail. But you've got to be concise in terms of the points that are noted and documented, and try to get to the meat of the sandwich and talk about what it is you're trying to get through. I use different levels of tone when I'm trying to depict a message. So if I'm really wanting to get a message through, I'll increase my tone a lot louder, and you'll be surprised exactly what you did there. You reacted because all of a sudden you heard me. So you'll either laugh or your ears will open up and think, oh. And you need to be able to speak in a way that's assertive and people respond to. So I'll tend to do that if I find a couple of people aren't paying attention. It's either that or I'm going to point them out individually, and they probably prefer that. Another technique I use that's very effective is walking around the classroom. So if I'm walking around behind you, my voice obviously comes a lot closer to you and a lot louder, and that generally makes people sit up if they're not sitting up, and start to write notes down. So little techniques there to try to make sure the participants are listening to things that you say. The other things around being positive with your body language, and that is being welcoming with your arms and your hands, nodding with your head, and smiling, and always encouraging that participation. So whatever someone says, even if it's not what you wanted them to say or you're hoping for something else, don't be negative around that discussion. Be positive. Make sure that they're encouraged to keep speaking. Otherwise, they'll go back into their shell. How does that sound?
Excellent.
And in terms of participation, we touched on it briefly before, and just again now, encourage that with your body language, but you're still going to find some participants are a little reserved. They have a different learning style. They tend to be a bit more, they try to absorb the information before they speak. They try to review data before they say something. What do you think you can do in that case? If they're not speaking up, even if you're giving them the opportunity to?
Well, it's a bit difficult if they're not volunteering it.
Mm.
But you have to, I suppose, ask people who you think would be best suited to answer the question.
Mm-hmm. So if you normally, in some cases, that's the same 2 or 3 people in the room. So if it's someone that wasn't speaking, what do you think you'd do?
I suppose ask them a question that they'd be more prone to
Very
know
good.
the answer to.
Yeah, very good. So something a bit more basic. Remembering that even as basic as you might think it is, they still may not know it and it could embarrass them further. So maybe give them a hint, get someone else to help them in the discussion, something like, Angela, can anyone else help Angela with that answer? And you get them involved that way. But be very, very positive to those people. So anything they say, you need to be encouraging and motivating, and do that, and not to shut them down. So ask for the input is what I'm trying to say there, and you get them all engaged. Especially when you're making a collective decision. You don't want someone to be left out, but you're always going to find some people speak up more, and that's fine. Maybe those are the people that you need to sort of say, anyone other than Angela know the answer to that question, and that you're encouraging input from others. So you use different techniques to make sure that you get a fairly even spread of participation. All right?
Yep.
How does that sound?
Very good, thank you.
Does it sound like something you could adapt to in terms of a model?
Yeah, it's a good model. As I said, for me it's just a matter of getting over nerves.
Yeah, okay. So do you understand a bit about that, what we talked about? Preparation is probably the key to helping you with that confidence, yeah? Mm-hmm. So when you talk about that area, when you're ready to go, and you think about if you're preparing for an event, you're preparing to go out one night, when you prepare in advance and your makeup's on and you've got your outfit and you're well ahead of time, you feel great, you feel confident, you can't wait to get there. When you're running late, because you can't find this and you can't find that, you're going to get a little bit flustered. It's a very similar model. Prepare with all the documentation, have your lesson plan and your agenda sent out early, have your plan to refer to, have you checked out the venue, your participants are all coming, you've got some refreshments, you're ready to go. You're going to feel much, much better that way. All right? So there's a couple of things there. But look, obviously this part that we've discussed today is more around the knowledge. You would have done and seen a couple of these things in the past. Other things you've just learned. Importantly, it's about practice. All right? So what I'd like to do to help you with that as part of your learning plan is, now I know that you conduct a couple of meetings at your workplace, usually at the start of the week to plan for the week ahead, and at the end to review the week. You were mentioning that to me before when we discussed that you wanted some help with this. So what I wanted to offer as part of your learning plan is the meeting on Monday. What I'd like to do for a few weeks, starting this Monday, is review your meeting agenda before the meeting. All right, so if you could send that to me, and remember what sort of items we talked about, you need to be on the list, so you've got to make sure the participants are the appropriate ones, your agenda items are clear. If there's an agenda item that you want someone to speak about, you need to put that in there as well, and any relevant documentation. Mm-hmm. And also put a time frame in there, how long you think each of the items will be spoken about, and the overall meeting time and what your outcomes are. All right, so what I can do to help you put some of this in practice is make sure that those meeting plans are thorough and you've covered off every point. How does that sound to you?
Good, thank you.
All right, if you can send that to me on the Friday before you send it out, and then on the Monday you can obviously take effect there. Additionally, on the Friday meeting when you do a review, what I'd love to see is your agenda for that as well, and the minutes and how the meeting was eventuated. What items did they tick off? What items weren't ticked off? And how did you manage that transition of keeping those agenda items open for the next meeting? Does that sound okay? You can send that to me the day before as well.
Sure.
What I'd like to do as well as part of your learning plan, Angela, is, if it's okay with you, and I don't want to make you nervous, is if I could attend a couple of meetings and just be a guest in the corner of the room.
Yeah, no worries.
How does that sound?
Yeah, it's good.
Will it make you nervous?
Oh, I'll be nervous anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
I'm sure you won't be nervous after we've put some of these things into practice. The other option is, of course, you can organise it to be taped, and I can review the tape as well if that's a better option for you, because you just know then and I'm not there. But we've got to remember that I'm only there to help you turn this knowledge into a skill and develop a lot of these attributes. So try to put that into your mind. We've got a great relationship. I've been teaching you a lot of things now for a while. So if you're comfortable with that, I'd really look forward to doing that. I love it when people observe me and give me the feedback. I look forward to the feedback because I know there's going to be things that I can get better at immediately. And there's no better way for me to help you than observation. So if you're okay with that, I'd love to attend maybe the week after at a couple of meetings. And we'll talk about that next week. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's good.
In the meantime, another thing that I just wanted to mention as part of your learning plan as well is whenever there's any meeting to be held at work, you've spoken before about maybe a new product coming out, there might be an announcement to be made. Try to put your hand up for it. It's going outside of your comfort zone, I know, but that's only going to consolidate your learnings a lot quicker. So anything you do in life, whether it's sport or work, the more often you do it, the more practice you do with it, the better you become. So just think every meeting you're having, it's another meeting under your belt that you're prepared for and implemented a lot of these techniques. So the more practice, the better you're going to be. How does that sound?
Good.
Yeah? Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
If you do that, I'll be happy to share the outcomes of those meetings as well with you. All right?
Thanks.
All right, so what I've got here is a learning plan that we've discussed today. And if I just run through with you briefly. So it talks a little bit about some of the things that, this is just an introduction page, sorry, with our details. And this page here talks a little bit about what I'm going to expect over the next couple of weeks. So I'll be reviewing your meetings in terms of the plans, and then also being a guest where I can make some direct observation. And it also talks a lot about these items here that we spoke about, and I've documented it in this to give it to you as a handout, where if we just do some quick review for you now before we move ahead. As a summary, remember to prepare for your meetings, as we talk about here, and that's preparing an agenda, make sure the participants have the appropriate ones, and any documents are attached as well. Remember the venue as well, that's another thing we talked about. In terms of conduct, time efficient, try to stick to a timeline. Participation from everyone, and make sure there's a minute taker there obviously throughout the meeting. And the follow-up is to check the notes after the meeting, distribute the minutes and the documents, and revisit the outcomes to the plan. Okay? So that's a bit of a guideline there in terms of a summary. And these are all, behavioural things that we spoke about. In terms of reading, make sure that it's easy for you to read, and it's not, you're not going to be straining or what do I often hear people say, oh, well, I can't even read my own writing. And you think, well, you should have typed in and made it clear, because that disrupts the meeting. Make sure all the participants have writing utensils to capture all the information. When you speak clearly, concise, take a breath, have a drink of water, ask questions, get the other people going. That way gives you time to review your thoughts. Body language, be positive, walk around, very important. And encourage participation. Might seem like there's a lot there, but once you focus on a couple of these things at the start these things are really a list of things that you can tick off in preparation. There's not much there for you to think about. It's about having a tick sheet and just going, yep, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that. And then it's about adapting and applying these behaviours here. All right? How does that sound to you?
Very good.
All right, so are you comfortable with what we've covered off today?
Yes, thanks.
Do you have any questions?
No, I think you've covered it. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to give you this handout. I'll look forward to your plan, your meeting plan coming through on Friday for the Monday meeting, and we'll kick off your learning plan. Just remembering again that this is a unit of competency called Manage Meetings, and it forms part of an overall study qualification called Diploma of Business, which I know that you're planning on doing in the future, so this will be part of that. You'd be happy to know. I've actually given you some more information on that competency right here, which talks a lot about some of the things we covered off today.
In very small font.
It is, yes. And that's a great pickup, so that'll be a good tool for you as well. All right?
Great, thank you.
Well, I really appreciate your time. I hope you've learnt a lot today, and I really look forward to seeing you run a managed and effective meeting in the future.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Angela. Well done.